Welcome, Francis, and welcome, William. Thank you so much for coming along this afternoon. It's great to have you with us. Today, we're going to continue in our fifth of a series of 12 talks around leadership and the transition of leadership from one role to the next. I think it was that we mentioned in one of our previous talks is that what got you here to where you are in this particular role is not going to get you through this particular role that you're now in. You're going to have to almost start all over again. And from my experience that I've had in the past, what I've really found hugely beneficial was a blueprint or a pathway that I was taught very many years ago that I really thoroughly enjoyed and I used over and over again. And that is why I've designed this series of talks and the courses that I actually give to individuals is around giving them the blueprint. And they can actually use this again and again as they continue in their career. So I'm going to start today about building trust and credibility from day one. And essentially what we're looking at here are the soft touch ways that you introduce yourself to individuals, to your boss, to your team members, to the supervisors you work that are either above you or below you in the organizational structure, and creating what I call those minor or small victories that you have right from the word go. So let's look at the early stages of building your personal credibility and the actions that are going to be required to build that credibility. So I think we've all got to understand that your first impressions are what really are completely disproportionate to any other meetings that you have. And people will judge you. Hold on, here we got Junior. Welcome, Junior. People will judge you right from the word go in a somewhat disproportionate sense. Because that's the first impression that you really create. It's understanding what messages you need to send about you, about your values. Welcome, Junior. It's the personal messages that you send about you, yourself, your values, and you're actually portraying and displaying the very first ideas that people are going to have about you in your leadership tenure in that particular organization. So I'm going to go back and say that it's your values and your goals that represent the style of leadership that you're going to do. And it's how you basically engage and introduce yourself to the individuals that you're going to be working with as you progress. For instance, I mean, some of the questions that you may consider when you are starting in a new role, are you going to be introducing yourself individually to people in your organization, or are you going to be introducing yourself to a much wider audience? And what is the message that you're going to be conveying when you do that introduction? So those are the points that I'm going to touch on initially in this little talk. So I think we all really know that, and I've mentioned this already, that first impressions really count. And it's how people perceive you, how the tenure or the tone of your tenure is going to continue in your leadership role. So I think we can all agree that it is really important to set that tone very early on, so people know where they stand with you. Are you available for them to see you informally? You know, it's setting the boundaries around how you do your leadership, and getting them to know exactly who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and making sure that your team and the people around you are really comfortable, and they are now experiencing the new leader that is in the organization. I think one of the things that I do want to touch on in the first 90 days, and you'll excuse me, I'm looking at my notes here, and that is what we call just avoiding some of the common traps that you may experience. And it's quite crucial that you get early wins. And of course, to avoid those early losses that you may be challenged with right from the word go. Firstly, I think one of the things that I've experienced certainly before are the distractions that you may overcome or encounter when you start that leadership journey. And essentially that first trap is the failure to focus. What do you look at when you join a new business? What are the things that are important to understand in the culture and the values of the organization and the people around you? And the other thing is, normally if you're coming into a new role, or perhaps it's a new role that's been created in your business, is people tend to latch things onto you that they think belong to you in your department. And I've encountered that personally. So I'm actually going to do some, just a little bit of a poll here. Penny, I don't know if you're actually there, and I'm going to ask perhaps William, if you'd like to come in here and share with us some of your thoughts around what some of the experiences are that you have had where people have thrown work at you in a new role. That would be a good discussion point to start with, that you never expected. William, are you there with us? Would anyone else like to come in there?
Yes, I'm here, but please repeat an instruction.
Okay. William, the question was, if you come into a new role and people see that you're the new kid on the block, as it were, and they throw work at you, that's actually not really in your ambit. Have you experienced that before, and how have you handled that?
I have experienced it before, and several times. As an entrepreneur, you are going to experience that kind of things. But for me, I had different approaches on different things.
Yeah.
And like I use different approaches on those kind of things, because they were not the same things, and I use different approaches. And usually when I'm stuck, and like I have to consult on my network, the people who are having an experience on that role.
Okay,
So
good.
that is what I usually do. Consultation.
Okay. Thank you. So William was just answering a question there about consultation. When you first come into a new role, some of the pitfalls or some of the obstacles that come your way, or traps I would call them, when you come into a new role, would be to focus around doing or introducing yourself and understanding basically what the culture and what the values are of that organization straight from the word go, and not necessarily making any big decisions in the beginning at all, and really just getting to know the people around you. Sonia, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you so much, Rick. I'm so sorry. I'm in the middle of another quantitative conference and we have a lunchtime, so I'm attending this.
Oh, good. Thank you very much for joining us. It's good to have you. So we're just talking about overcoming some of the common challenges, right, early on in a new role. And we've got, we're just discussing some of the pitfalls that people may experience, right, in the word go, from the word go. So one of the big challenges, and I found this too, working in one country and then another, was actually adapting to the new culture of the country for a start, and also the culture of the organization. And it's very easy for people that are outside of an organization that stumble and kind of flounder a little bit when you're starting in a new organization, in a new country, and you're not quite sure how they define a win, and what reactions would people have if it was an individual achievement in the early days, or rather a team achievement. So it's very important to read the situation in your business to know whether people are going to be congratulating individuals or teams. And then also, as I say, defining what success and what good or what recognition actually looks like. Junior, I'm going to ask you to come in here and just perhaps talk about some of the pitfalls that people may encounter in coming into a new organization. I'm sure that you may have some experience around this and be able to help us.
Well, one of the biggest things is you're expected to be able to do something.
That's right.
I went into Botswana. I was supposed to be the guy that's coming in slowly. They had 4 or 5 managers. They had 4 operating shafts as a mining manager on a big mine. Then one of the guys decided, no, he's not going to stay anymore. So instead of me having this 4 or 5 months to really get to know the people, operations, how they do it, all of a sudden there you are. And this was right at the time, the budget month. So because of a situation where we were in, the guy said, okay, yeah, you got to do the budget. So we started working, and I said to the guys, all right, you guys been through this before? Yes, we've done it. We know what to do. Okay, so go and do it. Swears they come back, the budget's double what it was the previous year. And it means I had to go from 0 base at a month to bring it back up to speed. And that's the expectation. Now, the replication of this was when I joined the Saudi company. Well, the mine that we started up for Saudi is I was flown into Perth. We walked into a room. They didn't even have offices there. It was a consultant's room. And I knew nothing about the project. I mean, literally nothing. I was just hired to come in as a mine manager, you know, and we were early startup. They're still in an exploration phase. And then these guys start popping up. Okay, this is going to be 10 million, 20 million, 100 million for this, and this is what it's going to look like. And then they said, okay, we don't have this money. We're not going to get this money. And they went from 500 million to 250 million in 2 hours. That's your budget, go build a mine. You know, so if you weren't in these experiences, they wipe the floor, or you run away, you run out of a bloody door.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenally challenging. Coming in as a new person, you know, if you're not aware that you've done something before, you can actually doubt yourself and just walk out of the door right there.
Yeah, no, thanks for those insights. And as I say, the experience I've had too before is when you've come in a newly designed role where people in marketing or sales or will basically say that your predecessor used to do this job. It's actually not something that you're either familiar with or that gets latched onto you and takes you off the focus of what you should be doing. I think just on a final tip there that I can discuss or just mention is it's really important to ensure that you have a very good understanding of what your superior or your boss wants you to win at. Having them define exactly what your path or what's going to make their job easier. My favorite question was, hey, you know what? I've just come in, I'm getting to know people, I'm getting to know the organization, but what's most important for you to succeed in your role that I can help you with? And I think that was always a useful tip for me, is just to understand what's going to spin their wheels, as it were, and make them look good. Obviously, you're helping them and you're helping the organization, but it's critically important for your boss's opinion of your work to be extremely favorable, because that sets the tone for them. So I'm going to go on to the next slide, and I want to explain this now. Junior and Penny have seen this before, but essentially this little table that I've drawn is quite crucial in that in the first 3 months of your role, your net contribution to the organization is in the negative. And it's quite important for you to understand that you're actually consuming value during that time. And that it's only after 6 months in the organization that you are going to have sort of a break-even point in the organization. So what we're saying in our leadership series is that we are trying to contract that or compress that somewhat by giving a blueprint for graduates and mid-level managers to actually go through a plan, a process of your leadership, so that you can actually compress this time scale a little bit more. I won't go into that anymore, and I will share the slides and the notes with everyone once we've completed this. The next one that I wanted to show you is actually slightly more convoluted, but these are, I enjoy tables. And as you can see here, this is really a table about transition into a new leadership role. And these are called waves of change. And it's by a chap by the name of Jack Gabaro. And I found this really interesting because the intensity of the change institutionally by a new leader goes in what you will see in front of you as waves. So in the first 6 months, you really are, as I referred to in the previous slide, getting to break-even point and getting to know the organization. And in stage 1 is, as I say, transition stage. The second stage, you'll hit a peak of your immersion into the organization, and you'll have a really good understanding of your organization and be able to then really sit down and make the plans that you would like to institute and reshape yourself in your leadership role. So there's a big dip at the end of the first year in terms of intensity, because by then too, you've got a very good idea of how you can change, what you need to change, and who you need to change in your organization. And that's when you'll be doing the change managing. In stage 3, you'll be reshaping the organization. And that should take another probably 6 months. And then you're building up again to consolidation and then evening out after about 3 years. Now, in my career, I've only really ever been in roles for about 4 or 5 years. And I think that by then, and having consolidated everything, I've felt satisfied that my contribution to the organization has been well worth it. Perhaps, Junior, you'd like to come in and tell me what you think about this particular table and whether you agree with this or not. You'll have to unmute yourself.
I think the cycles are changing now so fast that we have to start maybe reevaluating where we sit here, because if I look in terms of people and what our experiences and what we've seen with people is that we're sitting with two critical stages. And I think what happens, it critically influences a manager's ability to actually function. If we go up to that 6 to 9 month stage, good employees leave there or mismatches. So you can have a slump that happens because you have, especially when you're coming in and you've got a relatively new crew with you also, there's a lot of high potential people that can drop out there. And then you go up, and then there's those people that tend to stay. And then you get to an 18-month period again, where then the really good guys give up and say, we leave.
Right.
So this is something that's most probably not in the general shape of what's seen, but this is sometimes also where most of your good leaders or managers that come into an organization is going to jump ship.
Right.
Because the effort that they put in to try and change, they optimists. They are there to do the change. So
Right.
they have to look at the cycles with the employees coming and going with the shorter cycles, employment cycles that you have. Because if you go and look at the Googles and those guys, their average cycle is less than 2 years. They don't retain people for more than 2 years. And,
Right.
and because of the poor hiring that's happening now at the moment also, people stay on for longer. But the problem is, it does not mean that they are, after that 9 to 12 month period, constructively contributing. And that is very difficult to understand and to work through. So the leader struggle here is at 9 months, they decide, am I going to stay or go? And then if they do stay on and they start building that hope section of coming up, and that's basically reshaping where they go. If they don't get it right at that stage, they're at 18 months. If they cannot handle that downfall, it actually fits in perfectly. If they can't handle that downfall, that's when they leave. And then the guys who's what we call in Afrikaans the bitter enders, the ones who will keep on forever, who just stay there because they may have some form of personal issue why they can't leave, or they just committed to this thing. That's when you have us coming up. But what's phenomenal for me is the peaks that you've drawn here. You never reach that higher peak. You go to a lower peak.
Right.
And that's the cyclical things that we go through is we go through a higher peak, but actually the higher peak is never higher than the previous high peak. And when you come down to the low, the tendency usually is to go to a lower low. So when a new guy comes in, their actual performance isn't that good. They just have to beat the previous low of the previous guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm quite fully answering your question, but these are the things that we've been observing and been going through ourselves so that we can understand and see what's happening around us as people.
Good. No, that's fantastic. I'm glad you were able to contribute there. I'm curious though, when you say that when people do go, your lows are actually even lower. So
yeah. You see, as your memory is as long as the last guy that was there.
That's
the new
right.
guy coming in didn't know the last guy.
And
the organization is so much on the short term that any improvement nearly over the previous quarter is a win for them.
Right.
Although celebrating something, it's a win, but it's actually not a win because they're still at a loss to the 2 quarters before that was actually higher than the high that they're actually recording now.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for those insights, Junior. Would anyone else like to come in and just comment around their own experiences in the waves of change in a leadership position? How about you, Pen? think Pen must be listening on a device. Kinga, would you like to come in? Sonia, from you.
I'll just speak about it for a minute, and maybe I'll have to hop off because the conference is beginning. But yes, I would like to share my experience of being in leadership roles in non-partisan organizations, and just give me 1 minute because the conference is beginning and I should get out of the
Okay,
room to speak here. I'm so sorry.
no problem. Thank you for joining us anyway. Would you like to make a quick comment on this one?
Um, I'm out of the conference hall. Apologies. So I was just saying that working in non-partisan organizations as a leadership role is another experience that I had where we provide pro bono consulting to micro entrepreneurs and startups around emerging markets and developing markets. We've consulted a lot of organizations in the Africa region, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Pakistan. So things where it comes across as a new leadership role is where you need to understand the norms and nuances of how the program works and how do you delegate the work and how do we interact within the team members. It's important to understand an organization's culture of how you are able to come across and fit yourself in and absorb properly, where it's not feeling like there's been a major shift in the leadership. You sustain with the same values of the organization, and then you carry on with that legacy, bringing the changes that are required. So
Right.
that is something, it's an art that you gain, and it's an experience that you gain over the time.
Right.
And I have had similar challenges where people want to be engaged in a particular different way. And then you realize how it has been going throughout the legacy when you keep bringing some small changes
Yes.
in that context. So I think that's pretty much how you do the transition. So I can kind of relate with your stages of reshaping and transitions because I think that's a part and parcel of every leadership experience that one draws.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your insights. Tell me just one question quickly before you go back to your
Yeah.
conference.
Yes.
With the startups that you've been familiar with all around the
Yeah.
world, and I really am, I respect your wide experience around the world with these startups. Is that cycle that we may have drawn there much narrower and the timescales much, much smaller? I would suspect. What's your experience?
Yeah. So the scope of the projects mostly become particular action points and their deliverables, and the long duration of the projects usually lasts across few months. So, for instance, you provide a consulting deliverable to an organization for their risk management strategies, marketing strategies, that would last for 3 months or 4 months, and we
Yeah.
have 50 around associates who work under us, and there's directors and then vice presidents who I have to manage through in
Right.
the program. And the interesting aspect is that since I'm a student in the PhD at Cambridge, all of these are supposed to be students, and there's a separate sort of motivation that you need to understand that every associate has under you. So you have to supervise. There's going to be different expectations and motivations for a teenager, a different motivation for early 20s, late 20s, a person with
That's
a
right.
family, and you need to motivate them with those things.
Yeah.
So you need to take care of how your employees or the people working with you help you through the client and navigate through that. So I
Yeah.
think that is equally an aspect to be considered.
Well, I know you're in a rush, but I'd be delighted one day if you could join us again and tell us about
Yes.
those intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors that people have,
Yeah.
especially the younger generations, as I'm
Yes.
sure you relate to that. Than,
I mean, I don't know if I'm young enough. I'm 28. I don't feel that young, but I think I'm young. I'm pretty young here.
But thank you so much for your contribution. And if you want to excuse yourself now, please go
Yes.
ahead.
I will be happy to join next week, coming up week. So looking forward to meet you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye then.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Okay. Penny, are you still in the show? I don't think Penny's here. And William, is there something that you would like to add perhaps around your staff in your entrepreneurial journey in South Africa, in Limpopo, around this? Is there something that perhaps you could add?
Thanks, Rick. To me, this is an eye opener for truly speaking.
Yeah.
Because I've been running Vixos Park since 2012.
Right.
And people were trying to fund Vixos Park, thinking Vixos Park will one day sustain itself. But even today, I'm still struggling. But to see ripples of change or waves of change, I think I will have to start afresh with the transition,
Yeah.
come up with my own method for the transition. And then when I'm done with the transition, I have to take step 2. Maybe I can make Vixos Park be sustainable, because people have been trying to help me, but they gave up. So
Right.
this is an eye-opener for truly speaking, and thanks for this.
Okay, good. Well, perhaps we should have a chat online, you know, just separately, so that we can get a better understanding of, you know, the challenges that you're facing in your organization. And we're just interesting to exchange a few notes around that at another time. I'm conscious of the time, and we're actually being a bit slow today. But there's one thing that I was just going to touch on very quickly, and that was, and I'm looking at my notes here next to me. It's around identifying those quick wins when you're setting clear goals and priorities with your team, and it's also around building those key relationships and what we call stakeholder mapping. And I think I know I have discussed this in the past, is really having separate conversations with people around what their objectives are in the organization, and building those soft relationships in a less formal manner, and not go in and automatically start talking about the business. I know that Junior has said that he's been under a huge amount of pressure to perform right from the word go, but I think generally speaking, certainly from my experience, it's really about building relationships. And just to give you a little bit of context, my roles in the past were around raising capital for projects. So I needed to impress on people who I was, where I was from, why I was there helping the organization. And in this last role that I was in was just after the earthquakes in Christchurch. And I actually felt almost a calling to work for an organization that had been severely damaged by the earthquakes in Christchurch. That was why I was there. But at the time too, then I had to help raise the capital to rebuild parts of this organization that I was working with. So it was around deciding what my priorities were, and identifying those quick wins, and actually having the right questions, and identifying the people's values and how much they valued the organization was also really important to me. The other thing that I think is very important for a leader is your energy level. How much energy are you actually giving to the people around you? What are your energy levels week in and week out? And how are you managing that? And how are you managing that with your team? And the high levels of performance that you demand from yourself and for your team, are you being true to yourself in actually achieving those high levels of energy and the standards that you want other people around you to deliver on as well? So I'm going to talk about energy. Francis, you've always got so much energy when you're dealing with the work that I'm dealing with. How do you keep your energy levels the way they are and your attitude the way it is when you're doing your work? And I must congratulate you for consistently being so consistent with your energy levels.
All right, thank you very much. So with regards to keeping up my energy level and staying consistent, it is knowing that I have a plan that I know is going to work, or a proven strategy that I know is going to work. And, regardless of what challenges that I face, I still work with the plan, maybe tweaking it here and there to suit the particular context that I find myself. But for me, I always try to stay consistent with the strategies that I have laid down. And so this has helped to, maintain that energy. Whatever happens today, tomorrow I go again. Whatever happens tomorrow, I go again the day after, to ensure that I do not stop, or I do not break that flow that I already have with the work that I am doing, basically. Yeah. So that's how I'm able to consistently keep my energy.
That is Francis's secret sauce. She's very energetic, and her smile and her attitude is infectious. And I congratulate you for that, and thank you for that very, very wholesomely. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to keep moving, and we're going to go on to this particular example. I just wanted to share with you a guy in South Africa who I really admire. He's quite a young or youngish businessman. His name is Alan Not Craig, spelled K-N-O-T-T, and his surname is Craig. Oh, yeah, Not Craig is his surname. Alan Not Craig. Now, he's got I haven't got a picture of him up here, and I don't want to play with my slides to pull it up because I won't get back to my slides. But he's perhaps, Francis, if you can find his profile on LinkedIn and you can just put that in the messages. I'd love for people to actually see that. This guy is the CEO of an organization called Fibre Time, F-I-B-R-E Time, Fibre Time. I believe that he was an executive with MTN, or one of the big telephone networks in South Africa, and he went out on his own. And in the last couple of years, he's created this company called Fibre Time. Well, it's an astonishing story of entrepreneurship, William, that you may be interested in having a look at. He's started in Cape Town with this fiber data, delivering data through fiber in the townships. In Cape Town, he's now in Port Elizabeth, and he's almost ready to pretty much take on the whole of Africa. His byline is to reach 3 billion people. And honestly, his performance has been as an executive hitting the ground running, has been just quite phenomenal. So basically what the company does, it puts down optic fiber in townships where there's a high density of people in townships. And they work on every household in a township spending about 25 Rand a day on data. And if you do the maths, the sums are actually eye-watering. They are so huge. This innovation would not work in a leafy suburb, in a wealthy suburb, in one of the big cities, because of the lack of density of population. So, for example, in the townships in Cape Town and in Port Elizabeth and throughout the country, they have discovered far more, and this is, I only read today, far more houses in South Africa in the townships than actually were displayed in the last South African census. And he's got a very bold claim. He says, South Africa was supposed to have according to the government has a population of 50 or 60 million, I'm not 100% sure. But essentially, they have found double the number of homes in blocks in the townships than are reputed to be there. So his bold claim is that South African population isn't 50 million, it's actually 100 million, based on his experience in the townships and how many connections they are doing with their fiber. And I just thought, wow, this guy's absolute groundbreaker. I would use him as an example in today's talk, and I'd encourage you guys to follow him on LinkedIn, because he's certainly going places. And yeah, well, with just reading his, his posts that he does on LinkedIn and just following his journey, which I think is phenomenal, because it won't be long and he'll be throughout Africa. So that was my sort of real life example for today. And then I was just going to ask if you've got any final thoughts about hitting the ground running in a new role, any final tips that you might want to share. And then we can call it a day. So I've got a pilot project checklist that I can share with those who are interested. So just you can either hit me up on LinkedIn or through my email, and I will send you that pilot project checklist of what you need to do when you're starting your new role. And I certainly will share that with Frances, and she can share that with you as well. So any final thoughts, Junior?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, what's her name, a lady that I've recently did a few posts with, is hitting the ground running means understanding what needs to be done. And one of the things that we have is the tendency will be to want to do something good to impress people. But at the end of the day, you end up impressing nobody.
Yeah.
Because you may end up working against a team. So this is the questions that you responded to also is, what is good enough, who's it good enough, and when is it good enough? Yeah. You can figure that out. You run, okay? Because then it's not you doing the work, then it's the people around you doing the work. Yeah. But as long as it's not in sync with those people around you, and you can't answer those questions, then you're out of sync with them. That means effectively you are not working, you are fighting each other, trying to get something done where there's no common agreement on. And I think that's not probably one of the biggest things to look at. Okay. Thanks for that, Junior. I actually made note of those questions. You know, when is it good enough? What does good enough look like? And who decides what good looks like? You know, well, at the end of the day, it's the customer who decides what's good enough. You see, and that's what we forget, because you as a manager will want to impress. You want to say what's good enough. It's not what you say. So what a customer's going to pay for at the end of the day. And that's sometimes very difficult to get to, because especially as you know what we're busy with, it's difficult because the customer is so varied. So how do you pin it down to a single customer? Unless you are in a niche market, we are working with a single customer. That's right. Yeah, thank you for those insights. Frances, is there anything you would like to have as a final say on hitting the ground running?
I think I'll just have to agree with Junior where he said that it's knowing what it is that is to be done and, getting it done. Yes, basically, you come into a new role and then you already understand what is expected of you, and then you're able to start to work accordingly to ensure that those things are done while you adjust. But I mean, you're able to start, you're able to get things going positively, basically, not I mean, it's one thing to start work your work, it's another thing to actually do it effectively. So being able to understand what's expected of you, being able to start your work, being able to put in your best efforts to ensure that there are no gaps while you adjust to your current realities.
Yeah, thank you. Good insight. William, is there anything you'd like to add as a final thought?
What I can see is that I'm very thankful for this, and it was my first time, and I heard you that this is the fifth session,
Yes.
but I can see that it is very fruitful to me, and then I'm looking forward to have one-on-one session with you. When you have time, I will make time.
Perfect. So, yeah, look, we can, on my LinkedIn profile, there's a spot, and what we can do is we can just send you a link, you know, like a calendar link, just to make a booking that's convenient for yourself and for me. So I'm going to end off there, guys, and thank you so much, Junior, as always. Your insights reflect a great deal of experience, and I really appreciate your contribution. Thanks, William. Thanks, Kinga and Francis and Penny. I really appreciate all you guys being here, and we'll chat again another time next week. See you guys. I'll